Let's talk about Canada's combat mission against ISIS forces in Iraq. Even before the mission officially gets underway, CTV News has learned that a small Canadian advance team is already on its way to the Middle East. Now, there is a debate set to take place today in the House of Commons. In about 90 minutes, we're anticipating the start of that debate. And Canada, as you may know, planning to send 6 CF-18s as well as 600 Canadian personnel for this mission. A Conservative majority will ensure that the vote will pass even without the support from the Liberals and the NDP, who, as you also might know, are opposed to the mission. So let's bring in our news panel right now for more on this. Joining us today, we have Michelle Zilio. She's with iPolitics, and she's in Ottawa. And also with us in Toronto, we have Wayne Spear. He's a contributor to the Huffington Post and the National Post. So good to see you both.
Good morning.
Good morning. Michelle, I'll ask you first, what do you anticipate we're going to hear from the Prime Minister? Will he try and give more detail as to why Canada needs to get on board with this coalition mission against ISIS?
Well, based on the past discussions, both in the House of Commons and out of the House of Commons, on the deployment to Iraq, I don't know if we'll hear more details about the mission itself. We've already got a pretty good idea of what's going to happen here. I think the opposition will press for more details, but we are probably going to hear more from the Prime Minister about making that case, because he has been criticized for not making the case of the need to extend and expand this mission. So I think we'll hear a lot more reasoning from the Prime Minister. He may again bring up the threats that ISIS poses not only to those communities in Iraq, in Syria, although it should be noted that we are not headed to Syria at the moment, but also to Canadians here at home. Yeah,
but Wayne, are you surprised that the Prime Minister hasn't worked a little harder to try and gain a consensus with the opposition?
Well, they have a majority, so I think they are pretty confident they can move forward.
Yeah, but wouldn't Canadians feel better if all three parties were, somewhat at least on the same page? Or is that just asking for the impossible because it's, politics at play, as we often see?
Well, Canadians seem to be 64 to 36% in favor of this mission, and there's a will there as well. And actually, I'm glad that Kobani came up, because that would be a perfect use of Canada's CF-18s. The ISIL, Daesh, are out there in the desert. For 3 weeks now, they've been attacking the Kurdish people. The women have taken up arms to defend their children and their lives. And the U.S. coalition has turned away and has refused, out of deference to Turkey, has refused to protect these people. I think that's something Canadians should be concerned about.
Right. You mentioned the flag flying in the city of Kobani in Syria, but right now the Canadian mission very much focused on Iraq. But still, we're hearing from Kurdish forces there. They're saying, and certainly many other experts, including retired Liberal Senator Romeo Dallaire, making the case that saying, without a ground force, really, this kind of mission will not be as effective as it could be. Michelle, what's your sense that eventually ground troops are going to be needed, or this is, what it is? It's going to be a 6-month mission that Canada's engaged in, and after that, well, maybe we'll beef up our humanitarian role?
Well, I'm not going to predict what's going to happen in 6 months, especially given the fact that there's an election coming up here in Canada. And as much as the government says that they're not, considering how this war may play into that kind of political sense, you have to keep that in mind. So experts have said, of course, many experts, including former Senator Romeo Dallaire, that boots on the ground will not be enough. And from what I've heard, that is true. But Canada is not going to be the one to lead that effort. If it is to start, we will follow the U.S. and then Britain, and we'll follow that typical pattern. So I think we need to look to our neighbors in the south and what they do as a next step, and then we can start making assumptions about what Canada may be doing beyond the 6-month mission that we are debating this week.
Okay, Michelle Zilio, Wayne Spear, joining us for our news panel. I want to thank you both.